Hey team, what is happening? So welcome to NIL Office Hours with John Bronckhorst. I was going to call you a coach there for a second.
You would have been wrong.
We're going to get to that. This is our first episode, and what we're going to do is NIL 101, what every athlete needs to know. And this is something that Aaron and I are really passionate about. And before we get into that, I want to take a quick moment to introduce myself as well as Aaron, and then we're going to introduce Coach, and then we're going to walk you through the steps. And we're going to be here every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. My name is Thomas Rowe. I'm the co-founder of Blueprint to Blue Chip, and I am a strength and conditioning sports performance coach here in Denver, Colorado. And I have always focused on the bigger, faster, stronger. And then when Aaron and I met and we put this business together, we combined her expertise, which is character, integrity, and discipline. So in essence, basically Blueprint to Blue Chip is a sports performance and character, integrity, and discipline curriculum that we have put together to make sure that athletes and their families and coaches are set up for success. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself, and then we're going to turn it over to John. Erin, it's all yours.
Hi, guys. So I kind of operate in two roles in this. So number one, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two high school athletes. So I'm living, breathing this role and understanding the complexities from a parenting angle. And how to parent, how to navigate through this, because times have definitely changed from when I played sports. And then my background is I spent 20 plus years in corporate America as an executive and then as a strategist and consultant. And so when Thomas and I came together, we really wanted to work on the identity of the athlete. Who is the athlete beyond the field? Who's the athlete making the decisions when it comes to moments like NIL, so that they can have their life plan, not plan A, plan B, plan C, but like, what's your life plan and how do you make choices towards that? And so we then love to work with people like John, who are expertise in a whole different field, to make sure that these athletes and families are set up to succeed in life, both on the field, off the field, whatever sport you're playing, as well as in life with your money, because he's in with Capital Wealth strategies, but he also is a parent. So we'll let John kind of tee up who he is.
All right, awesome. Well, first of all, Thomas and Aaron, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this great platform. Great dialogue we've had behind the scenes, and so excited about this series. For everyone, again, my name is John Bronckhorst. I'm a financial professional with Capital Wealth Strategies in Austin, Texas. I'm a retired athletic administrator and head coach. I did that for 30 years, coached at the professional college and high school levels. Had the opportunity, I'm a parent of two kids. I had an opportunity to coach my son in high school, and got an opportunity to watch him fulfill his goals of playing college football and eventually going and play football overseas. And so I've been through several phases of this whole athletic dichotomy, from professional, college, and high school. For me, as we touched about on this, is for me, the purpose of this podcast is to provide an ongoing NIL and revenue sharing income education. Mm-hmm. And for the next 12 weeks, we're going to cover a lot of topics, that range from, like today, NIL 101, the basics of NIL, compliance, contracts, collectives, et cetera. You name it, we're probably going to cover it. And so it's going to be very comprehensive, accessible NIL revenue sharing education series. And I'm excited to be partnering with you guys to help our student athletes out across the country, navigate through this NIL space, I guess you could say. So this is NIL Office Hours with John Bronckhorst.
John, I'm going to call you Coach because I love the
please.
background. I love the background that you and I, when we first met, we talked about it. And my background has been in athletics, and yours has been in coaching. And one of the things we talked about when I was playing, when my brothers were playing, there was no NIL. There was no the transfer portal meant you were going to either drop down to a lower division or you're going to sit for a year. So now with the transfer portal, Could you get into a little bit of how you feel that the transfer portal and NIL seems to be going hand in hand now? It's kind of like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it has to, again, when it comes to the transfer, the transfer portal itself was set up before NIL and revenue sharing. And then they've been tied together because so many kids now are leaving because of opportunities. Yeah, and so you see these kids who that have been playing college football for 4 years, and they've played for 4 different programs.
Right.
And it's to me it's the wild, wild west now, because you can go anywhere, anytime. You're basically a hired gun, and so you're going to the highest bidder essentially,
Sure.
And that's kind of what college athletics and in some respects it's filtering down now into the high schools.
Right.
With the state. So it's just, you're going to the highest bidder now.
That's, one of the first questions just popped through, Coach. I'm going to pop this off, and this is from a high school athlete. If I post something on Instagram and tag a brand, even just because I like their product, is that considered NIL, or do I have to get paid for it to be on that account? Or how do I disclose this, or I don't disclose this?
Yeah, when it comes to NIL, things like that, you have to have a relationship, a partnership with that brand for it to count for anything.
Okay.
Just simply, if I were to go on, at my former school, my last school, we were an Adidas school. So everything that I tagged athletically, I tagged Adidas and hashtag 3 Stripes Life because we had a partnership with them. And the same holds true when it comes to athletes. You just by simply tagging a brand does not mean that you're locked into any sort of NIL, branding partnership with them. They would have to you'd have to be in partnership with them. There'd have to be contracts, et cetera, for that to be considered an NIL stream.
Gotcha. This is from a high school junior. I'm terrified of losing my eligibility over an NIL mistake. What are the most common mistakes athletes make that accidentally put their eligibility at risk? Like, what should I absolutely never do? What are the do's and don'ts?
Sure. The number one thing is compliance.
Okay.
Make sure you understand your state's regulations when it comes to what you're allowed to do and not to do when it comes to compliance. That's the number one thing. Because every state has different rules. I'm in the state of Texas. High school athletes they're not allowed to participate in NIL yet unless they're 17 years old and have used up all of their eligibility. And so the easiest way to fall prey to losing your eligibility is entering into something, an agreement and trading services and not knowing what your state regulations are, per your governing body of athletics. So make sure, and that's one thing that the coaches, your high school coaches, athletic directors should be educating you as a student athlete are those rules and regulations.
This is so fitting. I've got Kevin from Tennessee. My school said that I have to report NIL deals, but nobody explained exactly how or when. What's the reporting process? What happens if I forget to report something or report it late? Is that an eligibility infraction?
It just boils down to what each state is going to say. What their rules and regulations are. I would say that as soon as you have the information, get it reported. But also, you need to make sure that you're getting in front of your coaches and your athletic administrators on exactly what that process is. There's going to be these state agencies are not looking for the I gotcha. They're gonna. I mean, it's such an ever evolving process. They're gonna work with you, especially because it changes. I mean, it changes monthly.
Sure.
On these things, it seems like. And so the biggest thing is get with your school administrator, your athletic administrator, get with the state, your state governing body, and get that information put out there as soon as possible. Another area, and we'll tackle down the road here, is making sure that if money is exchanged or any sort of bartering or whatever, making sure that income is reported because it is a reportable. Because I mean, if you're exchanging money, that's a reportable benefit that the IRS wants to know about.
Oh, for sure. I've got Mark from Colorado. Coach, be honest with me. I'm a Division II athlete with about 8,000 followers. Not the realistic NIL opportunity for someone. What's the realistic NIL opportunity for someone at my level? I don't want hype. I want truth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, my son played Division II. My daughter-in-law played Division II.
Okay.
And I will tell you what's happening mostly at the Division II level is that basically it's bartering. It's the NIL. You're not getting any revenue sharing income. That's just not happening because those universities are just not big enough. There's no TV contracts or anything like that. So the NIL deal is going to be more of a bartering system, which is you're going to get free food at a restaurant in exchange for your name, image, and likeness, for you marketing for that restaurant. Or you may exchange benefits such as a free apartment or a rental car. You're going to get leased a car for the school year or whatever. And so that's generally how NIL works. It doesn't, your followers, again, that stuff will build. Your following will build. The biggest thing is going to be because that's where that starts from that standpoint. And that's how that you're not going to get an actual dollar for dollar exchange. You're going to get a bartering system of hey, we get to use your name, image, and likeness, and we're going to give you free food every month during the season or whatever. So you're exchanging the services.
Excellent. So the questions are coming through, and I'm keeping a tab on those, Coach. What does NIL 101 mean to you and in relationship to these athletes?
Sure.
And the families?
Yeah, absolutely. So, after spending the last 30 years in education and in coaching, I've seen a ton of changes in high school and college athletics. But I've never seen anything transform the landscape as quickly as NIL and revenue sharing. Okay. And the problem is that most athletes, parents, coaches, they hear these terms every day, but they don't fully understand what they mean. Okay. And so, and a lot of people may wonder, and just like our last question, why does understanding NIL matter if I'm not a 5-star recruit or a Division I athlete? Right. And here's why. NIL isn't changing how athletes get paid. It's changing recruiting, roster management, transfers, financial decisions, branding, and even family conversations around college athletics. And so it doesn't matter if your athlete earns $500 or $500,000. Understanding the business side of athletics is becoming just as important as understanding the game itself.
Sure.
And so to me, that's why this show exists.
Right.
Because for me, my goal isn't about helping athletes make more money. My goal is to help athletes make smarter decisions.
Correct.
Okay. And so to me, there are some huge misconceptions in college athletics. First of all, there's the misconception of NIL and just the all-encompassing umbrella of NIL, but it's NIL and revenue sharing income because they're not the same thing. And so the understanding the difference may be the most important, things that an athlete can learn. Okay, when it comes to understanding both of those. Mm-hmm. And for me, a special note to parents, if we have parents listening today, understanding that NIL isn't just an athletic conversation anymore.
Right.
It's a financial conversation. It's a legal conversation. It's a branding conversation. And it's often a tax conversation.
Sure. Yeah, we already have some. Yes, we do have parents. I've got some questions here from parents, but the one thing I want to touch on that I find that is a dark abyss for me when I'm talking to our athletes is, student athletes before they'd have to focus on their academics and they would have to focus on their sport. Now, if they embark on NIL deals, they're going to have to focus on their obligations to that commitment, right? So they've just basically taken on a third branch of responsibilities. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, and so I call those things the 5 big truths of NIL.
Okay.
Okay, and so I call them the truth bombs. Okay, and so the first truth bomb is this: NIL is not free money.
Right.
Okay. Many athletes think that NIL means someone simply pays them because they're good athletes. That isn't how it works.
Right.
Okay? NIL is a business transaction. A company pays an athlete because they believe the athlete can provide value. And the value may come through social media promotion, endorsements, camps and clinics, appearances, merchandise, content creation. The athlete performs a service, the athlete gets paid.
Sure.
That's NIL right there.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the second truth bomb is that every athlete already has a brand. All right. Now, I have athletes tell me all the time, I don't have a brand. Actually, you do. And
Right.
this falls in line with everything that you stand for, Thomas and Aaron, as a Blueprint to Blue Chip organization. The brand is their reputation.
Correct.
It's what people think when they hear your name. You know, are you dependable?
Mhm.
Are you coachable? Are you trustworthy? How do you represent yourself online? That's your brand. And so long before NIL deals show up, the reputation is already working for them or it's working against them.
Sure.
The third truth bomb is that NIL creates opportunities and risks. You know, the opportunities are obvious.
Right.
You know, income, exposure, business experience, networking. But the risks are bad contracts, scams,
Yeah.
tax problems. As we just talked about with the athlete a second ago, compliance mistakes, poor social media decisions. Education is what separates opportunity from disaster. Our fourth truth bomb is NIL and revenue sharing are different. We just talked about that a few minutes ago. This is where a lot of people get confused because NIL obviously stands for name, image, and likeness. NIL is entrepreneurial income.
Right.
Mhm.
It comes from third parties, businesses, sponsors, local companies, national brands, collectives. The athlete receives the compensation because their name, image, or influence creates value. Revenue sharing is different. Revenue sharing is all about schools distributing a portion of athletic revenue directly to the athletes.
Okay.
Okay, so NIL is outside money. Revenue sharing is school generated money. And that's where, again, we were talking about the Division II athlete a second ago. They're going to be more on that outside money, that NIL money, because revenue sharing at the Division II, Division III levels just don't happen. And most of the time, revenue sharing doesn't happen at a lot of non-Power 5 schools. All right. And so NIL is a marketing opportunity and revenue sharing is a compensation model. Both put money into the athletes' pockets, but they come from different sources and exist for different reasons. So college, high school and college athletics continue to evolve. Athletes need to understand both.
Sure.
And then our last truth bomb is the athletes who are going to win. The athletes who win will think like business owners. So the most successful athletes in this era won't necessarily be the most talented. They're going to be the most prepared. Prepared athletes understand contracts, taxes, branding, relationships, financial responsibilities. Talent may create opportunities, but preparation determines what happens next.
Okay.
Those are the areas right there to me that why education is so important in this NIL space are those truth bombs.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Now let's get into some questions. This is from a parent.
Yeah.
Our daughter is being recruited heavily, and several brands have already reached out. She's still in high school. What are the rules for high school athletes specifically, and how do we protect her eligibility for college? I think you touched on that. It depends on the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I've run into a number of athletes who do not play for their school. They play for their club. So those eligibility rules do not apply because, like I have a volleyball player that I know who does not play high school volleyball. She only exclusively plays for her club. And so she is taking advantage of her NIL opportunities because she knows she's never going to play for her high school. That is going to have zero impact on her college eligibility.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, if you're a high school athlete and you have opportunities for NIL, you need to make sure that you understand your state's rules and regulations when it comes to that. And that again, and I put a lot of onus not on the parents, I put the onus on the athletic administrators. They know that they have athletes who are going to be those revenue generating athletes, those NIL type athletes. It is imperative that they get in front of those families or bring such an expert such as myself into those conversations and have a parent night and educate them on what the rules and regulations are so they're not losing eligibility in those states. Because if you have a student athlete who's a junior who's already getting contacted by brands and they take advantage of that and the state doesn't allow it, that student's going to be ruled ineligible.
Sure. Hi, Jonna. I'm a parent in Southern California. Someone reached out to our son offering to be his NIL advisor and manage his deals for a commission. How do we know if this person is legitimate? What questions should we ask before we trust anyone with our athletes' NIL?
Great question. The biggest thing is going to be vet everybody you have because everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. You have street agents, you have all these people. So make sure that you vet their background, who they are. Are they certified? Everybody can say that they're certified, but are they NFLPA certified? Are they an attorney, or are they just some Joe Schmo off the street who decide that they're going to get in this space and are going to, obviously charge a commission to manage the deals? Because the biggest thing is you want somebody who has. If they're going to help negotiate contracts, they've got to be an attorney. They got to have a legal background to negotiate these contracts.
Got it.
And so that's vitally important. So vetting is important, making sure that you get all the information about what firm do they represent. If they're independent, get referrals on who else do they represent, that sort of thing.
Got it. This is from a coach. As a college coach, what am I actually allowed to tell my athletes about NIL? I don't want to steer them wrong, but I also don't want to stay so hands off that they make mistakes. Where's that line?
Yeah, to me, I don't think that happens enough in college. To me, it's all about financial literacy. That would be my recommendation first and foremost to any college coach. Is get your kids set up with, bring a financial literacy coach in and do during spring or fall camp or whatever, and spend an hour of during a team meeting and have that coach come in and do a financial literacy education for them so they understand. Not just, we have them set up with a CPA to go file their taxes. Helping them understand the landscape of what this NIL and revenue sharing is. There are no restrictions on what, as long as they're your student athlete, there are no restrictions that for having those conversations take place on education.
Awesome. This is from another coach. Coach, we have a 30-minute Q&A session after film regarding NIL. But NIL rules change constantly. As a coach, I can't keep up. Where do I go for reliable current information so I can give my athletes accurate guidance without giving them outdated advice?
Yeah. No. So I partner with a firm called Clean Connect. They are the leader in NIL education for student athletes. I actually have a certification through them. I have a landing page there as well. but they're one of the best NIL education companies out there, and because they keep up with all the latest news, information, trends, everything. My recommendation is to get your student athletes signed up for their NIL student athlete class, and do it. Make it a part of your athletic class of your team, to where they come you spend that 30 minutes spend 30 minutes every other day in a video session and watching the video and that sort of thing. It is incredibly beneficial. I cannot stress enough: education, education, education.
Sure. On that one, what's the biggest NIL myth you hear from athletes and parents that you want to debunk right now? What's the most dangerous misunderstanding out there?
That's funny, because I tell people, I have my 5 truth bombs. When you have truth bombs, there's always going to be a myth.
Sure.
And so the biggest myth and biggest misconception is that every college athlete is making a lot of money.
Right.
The headlines focus on the 6-figure, 7-figure deals, but those athletes represent a very small percentage of the market. And so most athletes are actually making, modest amounts of anything at all.
Right.
And so NIL is not just about making money. It's about creating opportunities, building relationships, developing a personal brand. NIL is a business.
Sure.
And the moment NIL money enters the picture, you are no longer just an athlete. You're also operating a business.
Exactly.
Businesses have contracts, taxes, branding, marketing, legal considerations, and financial responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Many athletes get excited about the money, but overlook the responsibilities.
No doubt. No doubt. Coach, if every athlete listening right now could do one thing this week to get their NIL foundation right, one action, one step, what would that be?
Yeah. And so to me, I would say, I've got a couple what I call pillars. Okay. And then I've got a couple action items. Okay. First of all, pillar number 1 is compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Understand your school, conference, and eligibility rules. Pillar number 2, contracts. Never sign something you don't fully understand. Pillar number 3, taxes. If you earn NIL income or revenue sharing income, the IRS wants to know about it.
Sure.
And the last pillar is your personal brand. Your social media, behavior, reputation, and relationships all affect your value.
For sure.
All right. And so if there's one thing to remember today, it's this: your NIL opportunity is temporary, but your reputation is permanent. Mm-hmm. Long after the money is spent, people will remember how you conducted yourself.
Right.
So ask yourself these 3 questions. What is my reputation? What value do I provide? And if a company researched me tonight, what would they find? Because whether you realize it or not, your NIL brand already exists.
Correct.
The question is whether you're managing it.
Got it. Got it. Awesome, team. Well, we're closing on a half hour. We want to be respectful of Coach's time as well as your time. This is going to be the final question. Keep the questions coming. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Coach, and he can tell you where you could get a hold of him outside of this seminar, but we'll be here every week. Coach, what's the number 1 red flag that tells you immediately that an NIL opportunity is either a scam or a serious risk? What should athletes never ignore?
They should never ignore that it's too good to be true.
Got it.
Anything that comes, that says that there's that, hey, because this is where you're going to run into an eligibility issue, especially for college athletes. I'm going to give you $100,000 and you don't have to do anything for us. To me, that's a red flag. And you want to quickly fall in the bad graces of the NCAA. That right there is what you can't do. You can't deal with the bag man. You can't take the $100,000 handshake without something being exchanged for it.
Got it. Coach, you're at Capital Wealth Strategies. Where can people get a hold of you, whether that's your social media handles, an email, or your website?
Yeah. And so website is cwsplanning.com. You can also, my email address is my first and last name, john.bronkhorst@cwsplanning.com. I'm on Twitter at Coach Bronk. And so that I'm always going to be Coach, no matter, how long I do this, I'm always going to be Coach. So I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me there as well. And then again, I'm an open book. And so people, if you continue to have questions, reach out to me via Twitter at Coach Bronk, on LinkedIn. I'm on there constantly in regards to the marketing and answering the questions of NIL. And then again, you can also shoot me an email, and I'll answer emails as well.
Perfect. Team, we're super excited about partnering with Coach, simply because one of the questions we get asked often is about NIL. And Aaron and I don't try to pretend that we know everything. We want to make sure we partner with somebody that knows exactly how to guide you in the right direction, exactly how Aaron and I guide you regarding bigger, faster, stronger, and character, integrity, and discipline. The landscape of college athletics as well as high school athletics are changing every day. We want to make sure that you tune in every week at 12 noon Mountain Time, and then this is coming at you every 30 minutes, and then keep the questions coming. We're going to build a database for next week that we'll just jump right into a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Coach, and he's going to tell you how the landscape has changed from next week to this week, and you can just keep it going. And this is your absolute greatest resource to understand. It's not just for student athletes, it's for parents as well as coaches. Team, thank you so much for joining us. Aaron, thank you for everything you do. John, Coach, we're super excited, and we will see you next week.
I'm pumped up. Hey, look forward to it, Thomas and Aaron. Thank you all again. And again, fire the questions off. Next week, we're going to be talking about compliance and eligibility.
Oh, I love it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Thanks, team. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.